We are finally getting into literally the best time of year, and honestly, the best time of year to read as well because there are so many good fall books. The weather is so cool and rainy and cozy, and you just want to stay inside with like a mug of tea or coffee and read a good spooky book. So, I thought this would be a great time to kind of do just a list of spooky fall book recommendations in no particular order. But these are just some books that I've read that I really like and I feel like will be a really fun vibe to kind of read during fall. And if you're looking for any book recommendations for this coming fall, I recommend literally all of these books I'm about to talk about. Also, if you have any books to recommend, please leave them in the comments because I always love to get into different fall vibe books and spooky kind of books. So please leave comments of those. So starting off, I thought I'd just do a few books that are like a creepy, suspenseful thriller kind of romance vibe. So the first two on my list are considered, I think, erotic thrillers, but obviously that's You by Carolyn Kepnes and then the sequel Hidden Bodies. I personally preferred You over Hidden Bodies. I didn't rate either of these just because it felt kind of weird to rate them. They were really good, but also very disturbing. And if you've seen the Netflix adaptation, these are similar, except definitely a little bit more graphic, and there are like slight differences. I've only read the first two, but I'm pretty sure there's like 4 books for it now. So if you don't know anything about You, it follows the main character Joe Goldberg, who is a stalker and ends up forming a relationship with the girl that he's stalking, and he ends up also killing people along the way. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil it by saying who he kills or anything like that, but it's like a creepy stalker thriller slash murdery book, I guess. They're really good, but they are slightly disturbing, so just be aware of that going into it, I guess. Then I'm sure you've seen this next book before. It was all over everything for a time, but honestly, that's for very good reason, and that is Verity by Colleen Hoover. This book is so good. Like, you will not want to put it down while you're reading it, or at least I personally did not want to put it down while I was reading it. It was absolutely insane and dark, and there were so many twists that I was not expecting. It's definitely one of Colleen Hoover's better works. So if you're not a huge fan of Colleen Hoover's writing or stories, this one is totally different than any of the other ones I've ever read. So basically, this one is about a writer who was asked by a man to come to his house and finish writing a book that his wife Verity had started writing but didn't get to finish because she had a life-altering injury. And so she stays with them for a while, and then she starts kind of digging through Verity's notes and discovering dark things, and creepy things also start happening around the house that she's staying at with them. But this one is really good, and if you're looking for a very fast-paced, thrilling, suspenseful read with a little bit of romance vibes, this would definitely be a really great one to dive into. And then we have Colleen Hoover's other kind of thrilling paranormal book, and that is Layla. This one, once again, is not really anything like Colleen Hoover's other works either, and it's also not really like Verity. This one's got definitely some like romance sprinkled into it as well. So basically, this one is about a couple, Leeds and Layla, and they're super happy together until I think she was like attacked or something and ended up in the hospital. And then after she recovers physically, she's still dealing with the mental effects of that attack, and it's kind of changed her in a way. So then Leeds decides to just uproot their life and move with her into the bed and breakfast where they first met, and then weird things kind of start happening and Layla starts acting extremely weird, and it's kind of like spooky and keeps you on edge the whole time. And like I said, there's like a paranormal vibe to this one as well, so if you're looking for like a paranormal kind of romance, this one was actually really good. So the next I have some spooky like graphic novels and manga. The first one is The Sad Ghost Club by Liza Meddings. This one is just super quick and cute, and I absolutely love the art style. It's really cute, and this one is about ghosts who are also struggling with anxiety and kind of getting through that. I really like this one, and I definitely think I might read it again this year just because I don't remember parts of it. I think it's just because I read it so fast the last time I read it, but definitely kind of more of like a lighthearted, spooky read. Then we have Frankenstein by Junji Ito. This is Junji Ito's take on the classic novel Frankenstein, and he does such a phenomenal job at drawing Frankenstein's monster in a unique way that has like never been done before. This one also freaked me out so bad. I read this when I was home alone, and I can still vividly remember the feeling it gave me. And if you've ever read like a scary book or watched a scary movie when you're home alone, you know the exact feeling I am talking about. It's like you're being watched or like somebody else is actually in the house with you. I don't know, definitely terrifying. Absolutely loved this one. I think this is actually one of my favorite Junji Ito's that I've ever read. Next we have kind of a cutesy manga series, and that is the Creepy Cat series. This one is adorable, and it's about a young woman who moves into a mansion, and there is a little white creepy cat who lives there, and it's just kind of about the spooky mischief that Creepy Cat kind of gets into. I really enjoyed these. If you're a cat person, highly recommend them. They're quite funny at times and definitely super cute. Then we have Cryptid Club by Sarah Anderson. This one is just like a cute little small bind up of little comics about like little cryptids. So I think like there's Slender Man, there's Bigfoot, there's I think little ghosts. I'm pretty sure Mothman is in this as well, but this is like a quick little 20-minute read, but it's so cute and will literally have you laughing out loud at times. So highly recommend this one if you're into like cute little graphic novels. And then naturally, if we're talking about Sarah Anderson, I have to mention Fangs. This one is one I promise myself I'm gonna read like every single year. I love it so much. It's a little cute graphic novel about a couple that is a werewolf and a vampire, and a lot of the jokes are kind of like sarcastic dark humor, which I very much enjoy. And it's just a lot of fun. It's once again like a 20-30 minute read, but it is so cute and funny. I love the art style in this one as well. It's completely different from Cryptid Club, but they're both so much fun in two completely unique ways. And naturally, if we're talking about like spooky fall reads and vampires, I have to mention Dracula because, I mean, how could you not? This is one of the greatest horror novels ever written. There is a reason why there are so many adaptations and remakes of Dracula. It is 100% one of the greatest classics ever. If classic literature intimidates you at all, I definitely recommend this as one to kind of start with because it's so easy to read. It's written in the form of letters, and I know that sounds kind of boring. It probably sounds kind of boring, but it's not. I promise you. This one will kind of keep you on the edge of your seat, and it also kind of makes you get that like uncomfortable, chilly goosebump sort of feeling at times. Such a good read. You'll just fly through it. It won't even feel like you're reading classic literature. And can we just talk about this edition for like 2 seconds? Gorgeous. But anyway, if you have not read Dracula, please do so. Then we have Carmilla. So Carmilla is actually a vampire story that was written before Dracula, and it's said that it inspired Dracula. Carmilla was a female vampire. This is a very short novel, but it is so much fun. I love it so much. Once again, this is classic literature that reads very easy, and it's not confusing at all or anything like that. It's definitely not as scary as Dracula. A lot of stuff in this one is definitely kind of left to the imagination a little bit more. And with that being said, I think I'm going to leave the plot up to your imagination because I really think you should pick this one up. It's super good and I think underrated, honestly. And then how could I talk about horror books and not mention at least one Stephen King? I could recommend a few, but I'm going to stick with just one because honestly, I could probably just make a video about Stephen King. But we're going to go with Misery. So I read this one earlier this year and it is so good. It's one of his, well, I'd consider it anyways, to be one of his shorter novels. And it's super suspenseful and gripping and honestly terrifying and gross at times, but it is so good, and the ending of this one is actually really good. One thing I find with Stephen King is that sometimes his endings kind of miss the mark a little bit, but this one, so good. This is another one you could probably honestly read in one sitting. It reads so quickly and you're constantly wanting to know what's going to happen next. How the heck is the main character going to get out of the situation that they are currently in? This one, however, I don't want to spoil the plot for because I went into it not knowing what it's about, and I think that was a really fun way to kind of go into it, so I highly recommend doing that with this one. Then we have My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. I read this one earlier this summer and I absolutely loved it. It was so good. It's like The Exorcist meets the 80s kind of vibes, and it's very like supernatural and kind of icky, honestly, but this to me is what the movie The Exorcist should have been, because I'm just saying that movie is a little bit boring at times, and this book is definitely not boring. So do with that information what you will, but if the cover at all seems interesting to you, I promise you that the cover represents the book very well. So in this case, judge the book by its cover, and if that seems like your vibe, you should probably read this. Then, of course, we have to also include an Agatha Christie, and naturally, why not Halloween Party, because October, fall, Halloween, yes. This one was also the one that was just made into a movie, but they changed the title, and I can't remember what they changed it to. I want to say it was like Murder in Venice or something like that. We'll go with that. I haven't seen the movie yet. I don't know if it's any good. If you liked it, I'm assuming you'd probably like the book too. But this one is just a really fun whodunit Agatha Christie murder mystery, and it takes place on Halloween. So super fun fall read, and if you're going to pick up an Agatha Christie for the fall and you haven't read this one yet, you should. So next I thought I'd just share a few collections of kind of like spookier poetry. So first is just this poetry collection duology by Amanda Lovelace. So the first one is To Make Monsters Out of Girls, and then the second one is To Drink Coffee with a Ghost. So this one I believe is kind of about like toxic relationships and is also like kind of a feminist collection. If I remember correctly, it has been a little while, but it's got kind of like a monster twist to it in a way. I don't know if I'm describing this correctly, but that's kind of how I remember it. And then this one made me bawl my eyes out at one point, mostly because the ghost she's referring to is her mother who's passed away, and I read this after my mother passed away, and so I could really kind of draw parallels between what she was saying and my own feelings at the time. But obviously, if it evoked that kind of emotion from me, it was pretty well written, and there were quite a few poems in this collection that I definitely deeply resonated with. But it was a very interesting take on grief and loss because it wasn't all positive things about the ghost. There was a lot of negative things associated with it as well, which I find isn't often represented enough. Definitely a very interesting one. Also, definitely not for everybody, but if that sounds like it might be interesting to you, I do recommend this one. Same goes with this one, obviously. And then the last is this collection of poetry called Poems Dead and Undead. This one is just a fun bind up of a bunch of different poems from a bunch of different years. Like literally some go back to like the 1600s. I don't even know what the oldest poem is in this book, but some are more modern than others, and they're all like spooky poetry about like zombies and witches, vampires, all that kind of stuff, all like the Halloween-y stuff. This is definitely a fun one to read in the fall around Halloween and kind of get into the spooky spirit, so to speak. I think that is going to do it for me for now for my fall spooky reading recommendations. Hopefully I'll get to read even more great spooky reads this year, and then next year I can recommend even more amazing ones to you because I love a good spooky read all year round, honestly. I'm not gonna lie to you. But with that, I think I'm gonna leave this video here. I hope you got at least one good recommendation out of this video. I also hope you have a great rest of your week and happy reading.